Hello, hello. It is the one and only, and I'm here, and I'm ready to talk about INFJs. Welcome to this program. Very happy you get a chance to listen to this information. I'm really delving into MBTI, which is one of the most powerful, tools that I feel as though is still hidden to a certain degree. I feel like the capacity of what it has to offer, it hasn't people aren't really aware yet. So this is really great. And what better type to talk about next than the INFJ? A very very special type. They make up they're the least represented type of them all, which means they're the rarest type of all the MBTI types. Them and INTJs are both in there, but INFJs have a very unique personality type, so that's something to keep in mind. Now we are going to touch on some of the aspects of INFJs. So let's begin. They are introverted, they're intuitive, they are feelers, and that J, which it means judging in terms of the INFJ, but as we talked about, judging isn't a function, it's just a way to describe this type. But they like things to be um, organized to a certain degree. They like structure. They like to know what's going on. You know what I mean? That gives them comfort versus just going with the flow. Now, this type can go with the flow. They have extroverted feeling as their second function, which means they can appear to be social a lot of the time. There are a lot of people who actually mistake INFJs for being extroverts because that extroverted feeling really is a powerful function when it comes to people. And them having that function second, it's like if they're either in their own world, their own intuition, but when they come out, they're present. They're communicating, they're talking with people. They like to deal with people. They like to communicate, and that's what makes them actually quite powerful because they have this balance of their own world, right? They have introverted thinking as a third function, so and we'll delve into that. But they have this certainty and they are confident in what they're talking about and they can be in their own world, but then they also can play and have fun. And that's because they have feeling and sensing, extroverted sensing, which makes them very much enjoy going out, experiencing the world, having fun. So those are some aspects about them. They possess a unique blend of empathy. So these are very caring individuals. They are insightful and they're creative. And without a doubt, INFJs, whatever they put their mind to and whatever they're passionate about, they really enjoy delving in, really being experts as much as they can at the things that they are passionate about. They are driven by purpose, and that's what gives them that flavor of being uh, insightful and interesting. Is because they're trailblazers in their own right. And of all the introverts, it could be argued that they are one of the most social introverts and the most leader type introverts because they're willing to deal with people and go the extra mile to help people move toward the vision because they are still visionaries. So they are going towards one direction. All of their thoughts and ideas are being generated into one target, and they're bringing people along for the ride, or they're interacting and communicating with people at some capacity to help make that happen. They are deeply attuned to the emotions and motivations of others. As I mentioned, extroverted feeling is their second function. So they are very much focusing on how other people feel in the environment. They are communicating with people and they have that introverted intuition, which means they, as their first function. So they're always anticipating what's next. So they can be the types to anticipate someone's needs, um, try to be helpful. They're always thinking, what is, something I can do in order to create a good outcome with someone. These are things that they just naturally think, and that's just part of their character, which is amazing. Um, and then see if I can get it. There we go. And then it says INFJs are driven by their ideals and values, striving to make a positive impact in the world. I think we all can agree on that. Anybody who's an INFJ, generally you want to bring positive energy into the world, and your intentions are generally very positive, pure, and you want to make the world a better place. Now, as we move forward, we're going to start to see, some of the things that aid you in that, and then some of the difficulties you might experience having this type of archetype. But before we do that, let's take a look at the some examples of INFJs. Now, let me just mention that these are not in these videos. I wouldn't say everybody's necessarily an INFJ, but what I will say is we want to pay attention to the qualities that are being emphasized in their character.
We can either dig people deeper into the illusion, or we can free them from the illusion.
I realized I'd never really been hungry. And it still breaks my heart how many people are hungry in this world.
I value human life equally. Every single individual life. I don't separate people by race, color, religion, and if I do, it's because I celebrate diversity in the world.
Violence is certainly much more social.
Now, what you notice is they're very clear about what they represent. They're very clear about their intention, and it's very human focused, trying to create a positive impact or be aware of other people. So I'm going to play this again, and I want you to just hear how each person is communicating in a way where they're showing a care towards the outside world, and they generally have a vision or an idealism of how they want to either affect the world or how they view the world. So let's take a look again.
Dig people deeper into the illusion, or we can free them from the illusion.
I realized I'd never really been hungry. And it still breaks my heart how many people are hungry in this world.
I value human life equally. Every single individual life. I don't separate people by race, color, religion, and if I do, it's because I celebrate diversity in the world.
Violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves.
There are so many reasons why I wanted to create something that would be a catalyst to gather Western women together to talk about the issues of girls and women living in the developing world.
So, with that being said, I think it's important to understand that with INFJs, they are moving toward a purpose to have a positive effect on people at their best. That is what your purpose is as an INFJ. Your job is to go toward a positive vision, apply your passion and focus toward it, and use that to positively affect the people around you. And that's just what that is. So, with that being said, let's move on to the next slide. So, who is the ENFJ? Who is this archetype? Let's go a little bit more in depth now about this type. So, they tend to be inward focused, okay, gaining energy from reflecting on their thoughts and ideas in solitude. So, have an introverted intuition. They like to think about their ideas, or they think best when it comes to their ideas during times of reflection. These are the types that reflect, and they end up getting realizations like, oh, wow. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's what I got to do, or XYZ. You know what I mean? And so because they have these intuitions, what's important is that they continue to socialize and gather information, because the more that they gather information, communicate with more people, and see more things, it increases the rate of these insights that they get. So that's what's kind of unique about this type. You know what I mean? That they do that. That's very unique. And so let's continue. They rely heavily on intuition and insights. So that's big. You know, the fact that they rely so heavily on intuition and insights is the reason why they are, you know, why it's important that they stay connected and rooted to the people around them. You know, being able to communicate with people, doing things in the environment helps keep this type grounded so that they aren't too much in their own heads, which is something that can definitely happen with this type when they're in solitude or when they're in their own world too much. So socializing, communicating, it's good. It's what helps keeps this type grounded. And I think that's important for INFJs to understand that you want to have a good balance, but at the same time, you don't want to be in a scenario where you are overextending yourself and you're too busy and going from here to there to there. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's something that INFJs can fall into, and that's something that they want to be aware of. INFJs are deeply in tune with the emotions of others. They prioritize values and harmony in the decision-making process. So they really value harmony. Their goal is to give the person that they are interfacing with a positive experience. And when that isn't being met, they don't feel good. You know, it is a thing that I've heard with INFJs and people who have extroverted feeling in general, where you can feel like a lot of your self-worth is based on how well you are able to service people. And it's this dynamic where, you know, if people aren't satisfied with or happy with the work that you're doing, you can feel invalidated. And so, you know, on one level, that can be a negative thing. But on another level, that's actually what makes you such a great, a likable person, because you do things to create a good space for people, and it gives you buy-in with people. You know, people appreciate those things, especially when you're in that mode where you're willing to give your best and you know, think outside of yourself, you know, for others, and try to create good experiences for others. That's one of the gifts that you have that you want to be mindful of. So INFJs definitely be mindful of that, because you have a natural ability or in a natural mind that wants to do that generally. And what you got to realize is most people don't. You know, so many people are so in their own head and so focused on themselves that they're not really thinking about others. And guess what? A lot of those people are in solitude. They don't have friend groups. They don't have loyal people around them or people that look forward to seeing them. And INFJs, because of this ability, you become very likable to a lot of people. They prefer structure and organization in their external world. We talked about that. Once again, that's very key. That structure is important. And we got to keep in mind that it's that structure that, you know, puts them in a position where they can be comfortable, right? You got to think about it. If you have introverted intuition and you have introverted thinking, you're very much in your own thoughts and in your own mind. So when you go out into the world, you could feel a little bit out of place. And so the beauty of knowing what you're going to be doing or having an environment that you feel safe about, it gives them more space to feel comfortable, because they can express themselves with the people that already know them, already embrace them. And it allows them to feel that structure of comfort. Because there are times where INFJs can feel like outcasts because they can be disconnected at times in that regard and be in their own head and things like that. So with that being said, I want to just show a video kind of showing some characteristics of this type. And I think it'd just be a good opportunity to allow you to see some of the characteristics that INFJs have, and you know, just kind of get a good idea of different flavors of them. And like I said, some of these types are exactly that type. So this could be INFJ, and then some of these types might not be, but it's the qualities that are being highlighted.
Or when did you start?
I can remember it as a real young child, I guess. My mother took me to the movies, and I would come home and I found I acted out all the parts that day. I guess I was a sort of lonely child. I was an only child, so I was alone, and it was a way of communicating with, I guess, the adults around me. And
So right there, the number one thing that you see is, number one, his imagination. He delved into his imagination by acting out these characters and playing these roles. He had the ability to hold the space in his mind to do that. And you notice he did it because it was a way for him to communicate with the adults around him. So you see how communication is a driving force for him. He wants to connect with the world, and when he's not able to, he has forms of escape. And then this tends to come together where they begin to learn, they begin to have ideas that and do things that will also aid in them having more relationships with people and communicating with people. And this is how they get good at understanding people, because they're using their ideas to figure out how to they're having these visions and ideas and things that they want to do. And then they go out and deal and interface with people, and they can utilize people to try to do that. So as they mature, it turns into something else. But you can see, even when he was young, he was utilizing those two functions.
I don't know. And in school, I found that it was a natural thing for me to do.
Did you grow up in a tough neighborhood? It wasn't?
I would say it was. Yeah, in some ways it was.
Are you tough?
Well, I don't know what that means. I wouldn't. Tough. Do I look tough? I guess I don't know. Tough getting through life. You got to be tough, I guess. We're all tough. It's how do you?
So you see how this is mentioning.
Why did you? Are you tough?
Well, I don't know what that means.
All right, right here. I think that's where I stopped. So it says constantly scanning the whole and frequently zooming in on various thoughts and feelings. So as you can see, his eyes, they're looking up. He's imagining. He's envisioning. And this is the same tools that he utilizes for his acting skills, right? In order to be that character, he has to leave where he is and imagine another character, and then the feeling hits there. It's almost like he interfaces and uses his extroverted feeling to come from that vision. And you can see him channeling it in right here.
How do you mean tough?
Cope. At coping. That's
toughness. I think what comes from toughness is because you're trying to cover something, isn't it? Usually, certain sensitivity or certain vulnerability. That's toughness. I wouldn't know if I am or not.
Are you vulnerable?
You'd have to. I wouldn't know that either. I would imagine I am.
How good are you at, or comfortable are you at looking inside yourself and saying, well, I'm this and I'm that? And
well, I'm doing it now. First time in a long time. There's a certain comfort in playing a character, like I once said, because with a character, sometimes you have a real sense of.
And I'll touch on some of the things they're talking about here.
Looking inside yourself and saying, well, I'm this and I'm that. And
well, I'm doing it now. First time in a long time.
Now, here when he says,
why did you start vulnerable?
You'd have to.
Let's find that spot. All right, grounding him, narrowing him down. T.I. helps NIFE Dom to steer his thoughts in a rational direction. So when he asked him that question, he said, well, I'm doing it now. That lets you know that he's using introverted thinking. He's focused on what's happening next. He's like, what happened? Oh, well, I just did it. It's not jumping out of here, jumping from there. He's staying within that context and giving his first thought. So just listen to how he's
looking inside yourself and saying, well, I'm this and I'm that. And
well, I'm doing it now. First time in a long time.
So he's just saying, exactly what's happening now. He's not jumping to different thoughts. He's staying in a logical progression based on the questions that are being asked. So that's where the introverted thinking is there. It's a grounding function. It's not jumping around in logic. It's staying very grounded and linear, one thought at a time based on what we're talking about.
There's a certain comfort in playing a character, like I once said, because with a character, sometimes you have a real sense of if it's working for you, if you've got it in a way, you know who you are, where you've been, why you've been there, and what you're going to do, and why you're doing it. Where in life sometimes it's hard to have that. You know what I mean? Because I was always acting, in a sense, being the clown or being the interpreter or the performer. I don't see you as a clown. Well, that's what I did the first part of my life. I did only comedy. I know you see how funny I am. But I did it, yeah. What kind of things? Well, I wrote my own reviews and things, and I directed them, and I cast them, and I put them on, and I where? I mean, professionally? Yeah. Where? I mean, like in the village, in some places in the village, yeah.
INFJs may have abilities they don't really show off to anyone, because that's kind of separate, right? What they're truly passionate about in terms of their intuition and where their thoughts are going, that's personal to them. Then when they're interfacing with people in the outer world, that's kind of like just, hey, it's just having fun, being playful, but then they go back into this world. So for you to understand that inner world, you have to be somebody that they view is worthy of having access to that.
Little coffee houses. I got a storefront and did it in a storefront and invited people. I was early 20s, I guess from 23 to 26, I did that. It sort of saved my life at the time because I was, I guess, so depressed. And so now was that so unhappy that
So that's an NITI loop. So we're going to talk about that.
That anything funny was sort of that's a good therapy, to do things that are funny. I mean, I would think, I'm always fascinated by people, funny people, because I think it's interesting to be around them too. Watch how they cope. The young person comes.
Extroverted feeling, extroverted sensing. What does that mean? They want to go out there, communicate and see the world, what's going on. And that's what they do to kind of have a better idea and have insights. So like you said, he likes to go out there and observe and see what's going on out there in the real world.
To you and says, Mr. Pacino.
So, hey, man, that was just some characteristics of INFJs. This is just one. But you can see the qualities. And I like this because INFJs, are predominantly women, but there are male INFJs. And it's nice to see, you got to see kind of the feminine energy representations of INFJs. Then you got to see some of the guys and some of the, this guy's played one of the baddest, the most badass characters that have existed, in terms of Scarface. And who would have thought that was an INFJ? But that goes to show you that INFJs, they have extroverted sensing as a fourth function, which is still relatively strong. So they're connected to that sensory, that groundedness, that rawness of reality. And that's what makes them, have that grittiness. And you get to see that the masculine representation of that as well. Now, strengths and weaknesses. All right. Now, when we talk about strengths and weaknesses, let's begin. The empathy and insightfulness is incredible. That's one of the strengths of INFJs. As you can see, when you talk to them, they're very intelligent people. They are visionaries and idealistic in terms of being able to have just that intuition, being able to tell what's going to happen next, being able to notice patterns and see how people are operating. It has an eye. It can see, it's very aesthetic. It can see what stands out, what pops, especially with that feeling there, it really has the ability to connect with certain symbols and archetypes and really just notice what has the potential to be something. So they have a good eye. They are very creative and they have an imagination for sure. They're very intuitive. Altruism and compassion is the goal for them. They are very much looking to avoid conflict. They're not going into situations looking to cause problems. And they tend to be positive individuals. So they are aiming to have altruism in their relationships, and they're looking to form partnerships where everybody can win. That is their goal. And once again, insightful, perceptive. They are very perceptive. They're very careful at what they're looking at with people. I mean, a big thing for INFJs is how you present yourself. depending on how you present yourself, a lot of the time will determine how serious an INFJ will take you. So, looks and perception, they are always looking very carefully at what you bring to the table every day, to see how consistent you are and to gain a good perception about whoever they're dealing with. And you got to remember, they have extroverted feelings second. So they're very aware of people. They've talked and communicated with so many different people. So they can tell the real from the fake, the fluff from the legit, So that's something that's very powerful quality that they have. Now let's talk about some of the weaknesses. Now, perfectionism is a big one because you got to think about it. Their first function is introverted intuition. And introverted intuition is the function that has a one idealistic idea that it wants to move toward, and it very much is a idealistic function. It's an intuitive function, but it's always looking at how something should be versus how it is. It's always looking forward to how what do we want to do that's the best outcome next versus what we're doing now. So it's always moving forward, and because of that, it's always trying to anticipate, have this perfect reality, based on what it imagines in its mind. And the reality is that that's not reality at times. As much as they try, that is one of their gifts because it gives them that willpower and drive to try to get to a perfect outcome. But the reality is that doesn't happen all the time. And when it doesn't happen, the INFJs have a tough time. They really aim to, minimize risk. And so when situations happen, they can be very distraught, they can be upset, they can want to give up. And that's something to keep in mind. And also they can demand that from the people around them because they have introverted intuition, and that's the vision that they have of where they want to go. You know what I mean? The reality is that when they begin going into extroverted feeling and they start applying that pressure on people, that can get people frustrated because now they're trying to demand perfection or pull people in a direction to get this outcome that they want. And if they don't keep track of it, especially since they have introverted thinking third, which means they at times when they really are going toward their vision, they can be blunt, they can be not very communicative, and not willing to share the full perspective of everything. They just kind of want to get there, and it's like hurry up, and they can use feeling to push you toward it. So they have to manage not being controlling, and that can be something that can be a problem. In terms of overthinking and overanalyzing, they have introverted intuition and they have introverted thinking, and we're going to talk about that next when we talk about the loops that people go through and what to look out for. But it could be a situation where they're constantly trying to think of the best outcome, and they just keep going back to trying to think and think and thinking, and they're not going out and communicating with others, and they're not leaving out of their environment. They're just stuck in their head with their intuition and their thinking, and they're just racking their brain. So that's something that can happen. They can have difficulty setting boundaries, because they have extroverted feeling second, and they have introverted intuition first, which is always trying to make the next best move. They can be in situations where they become slaves to trying to provide the best outcome for somebody. And they can have difficulties putting boundaries in place because their feelings can get intertwined. They want to deliver. They want their feeling of self-worthiness to be validated by them making the other person feel worthy. These are all the things that can make them have difficulties with setting boundaries. And then they can have a sensitivity to criticism. You know what I mean? With that introverted intuition, they see themselves as perfectionists. They want to be perfectionists, or they don't want to be perfectionists. They want things to be as perfect as they can be, which then makes them perfectionists. And because of that, when they find out from other people that something doesn't look right, or they get that criticism, it can hurt them because they could, it can mess with their sense of worthiness at times. Now, so that's something for INFJs to be mindful of. And then in terms of idealism versus realism, and that's something that I talked about earlier, you have introverted intuition first, and you have extroverted sensing, which is the reality function fourth. So you constantly are in your idealism of where things are going to go, and sometimes it can be a bit disconnected from the reality on the ground, because you're very much focused on your target goal, but a lot of the things outside of that, isn't getting that attention, and that can be a situation where they can get in trouble. So they have to stay grounded as possible, and manage their expectations and that intuition and that vision, so that they're not losing sight of the groundedness that they need in order to maintain and be in the best situation that they can be in. So with that being said, we're going to tap into a video that touches on what happens when INFJs are not at their best. Now, we talked about the grip. If you've been watching, the grip is what happens when you are the main functions that you use when they are in a situation where they are, not helping you in a situation. And so what starts to happen is you start to lean on other functions, and it can cause people to stress out. And we're going to talk about that in depth on the next slide. But for now, if you want to see what an unhealthy version of a INFJ looks like, take a look at this. Now, hold on, give me 1 second. Let me get out of here. All right. All right.
The show's tonight. No. Oh, don't worry. I called the theater and I told them you weren't feeling well. I have to go. No, lay down. Go with me. You're staying in here until you feel better. Where is it? This one was destroying you. No! What happened to my sweet girl, huh? She's gone.
All right. Lack of harmony is stressing out the INFJ. Now, this is an extreme situation, but still, obviously, the INFJ is in a disagreement with the mother, which is, causing her to feel trapped, which is causing her to lash out. They have extroverted sensing as a fourth function. So when they lash out, that it can come out in a unhealthy extroverted sensing way. And that is a lot of the time with physicality, fighting, taking physical violence, and it's not physical violence to hurt somebody necessarily. A lot of the time it's physical violence because they feel trapped and there's no other way for them to go. And in this case, this is our own mother, and this is what happens when they get into a really bad grip.
No, please! You're not well! Let go of me! I can't handle this! I can't! I'm the Swan Queen! You're the one who never lets it go! Lena!
What's it about?
It's about a girl who gets turned into a swan, and she needs love to break the spell.
Okay.
But her prince falls for the wrong girl.
Now you can see her talking about this book, and you can see how that introverted intuition is starting to kick in. She's looking dreamy-eyed. She's, so into how she explains the story because she feels an emotional connection to that story. That's the power of introverted intuition. It wants to believe in fantasy. It has that natural connection to fantasy.
So she kills herself.
Sounds a happy honeymoon.
Now, we're going to talk about it in the next slide, but when INFJs get in a scenario where they're in their grip and they're in their worst situations, they can just totally, to try to escape their thoughts and their visions. I mean, their thoughts and their mind, they can just jump into just extroverted sensing, extroverted feeling, just looking to have experiences with people, just going out, letting loose, just not even paying attention. This can be negative at times, and this is what it looks like. And they mentioned it's not like they're having pleasure in this moment. It's just an out-of-body experience to them, which means that they're not getting that joy from it. It's more so them just using it as an escape mechanism. And as you can see, that they are introverts, so you can imagine an environment like this can be a lot for them to manage. And so you can see that how that's playing out.
Hey, what the fuck? Where you going?
And that's the cycle. They feel this self hatred for what they've done, and it just fuels more negative behavior. Let's see how. They can become very exhausted.
Where are you going?
All right, so there we go. frustrated. And it can get to points where they can experience forms of depression, disassociation, because they're not getting to this ideal place that they want to get to. And it's causing them to, stay more and more inside of their head, more and more away from people. And one of the worst things INFJs can do is try to isolate themselves. It's like the more that you isolate yourself, and INFJs can do that, they can feel that the outside world has been negative or cruel to them, or not giving them what they desire, whether it's friends, family, whatever. And they can get caught up in these scenarios where they try to run away and go to their ideal spaces in their mind and just get away from everyone. And that's fine in if you're doing that, at a relatively like in increments. But when you're doing that all the time, when you're experiencing negative situations, or when you do it to an extreme level, you begin to disassociate yourself from people and you begin to feel loneliness. And that's dangerous for an INFJ because you have extroverted feeling second. So when you're stuck in your own head and you're stuck in your own mind, and you end up being in your own cage of solitude, and it can get very dark. So it's important that no matter how alone that you feel, no matter how wronged you feel from the world, or how messed up things may be, or no matter how obsessed you are with a goal, right? You might just be obsessed with the goal and you're constantly putting all your attention on that, trying to figure it out. You still have to stay connected to the people and connected to the ground. You're 2 feet on the ground. You want to still be able to talk to the people that you know and care about. You know what I mean? Walk around, see the environment, and eat good food, have good experiences, work out, get a massage, do things to keep you stimulated so that you can balance everything and it's not all this pressure in your head. That's very important for INFJs to understand. And then for the second functional loop, that's very important, is when it comes to extroverted feeling and extroverted sensing. What can happen to INFJs is they can feel stuck, or they can feel not happy about the way things are going in their mind. And as a result, they can go out into the world, like we saw in the previous video, going to the party, drinking way too much, indulging way too much as a means to escape your mind. And what they can do is they can go out and try to communicate with all these people and have all these experiences. And it's almost like they're constantly chasing the next experience after the next because they're not grounded in their mind. So as an INFJ, you have to practice the art of mental clarity, doing those exercises, having a strong mind, self-help, reading books, audio books, learning positive information. Keep feeding your mind with positive information so that you have a happy and comfortable and grounded place in your intuitive world and your thinking. That way, when you go out into the world, you're doing it in a way where, you're enjoying yourself, but you're not having to do it to escape your inner world. The reality is, just like we talk in the videos, is that you have your inner world and then you have your outside world, the world that we live in and interact with other people. And that's what I love about MBTI. I mean, look here, you're looking at duality, you're looking at introversion and extroversion. You have your inner world. And while most people tell you, oh, go into your inner world and go into your outer world, what makes this so magical is you know exactly what your inner world is about, and you know exactly what your outer world is about based on these functions. So now it allows you to have a lot more skill and understanding in your inner world. When you're in your inner world, you're like in a laboratory. This is your intuition. You see the pathway to get to the place you want to get. But then, in the outer world, you have the ability to communicate and connect with the world. So if you could pair those two things together, you have the tools to do amazing things. And with that being said, this is where we get to your gifts. All right. So what is the gift of the INFJ? I know you see it right here. It is your vision. All right. You have introverted intuition and you have extroverted feeling, which allows you to understand where you want to go and to understand how to inspire people to help you get there. All right. You have strength, focus, and sheer determination that is like none other. What people underestimate about INFJs is that they think INFJs are, you know, just, nice, quiet, meek, or, just helpful, caring, modest. No, no, they have a strength and a grit. They have extroverted sensing in their top four functions. So you're going to feel their presence, and they have a force and a willpower behind them that is powering them to get to where they want to go. So they're always going to have this toughness, this quiet toughness within them. And they have clarity. They have introverted intuition as their first function, and they have introverted thinking as their third. So they are very aware of where they want to go and what they think. They're not as distracted by other people's ideas like extroverted intuition might. They're not distracted by what other people think, just like people with extroverted thinking. That's not their main functions. They know where they want to go and they know what they think. And because of that, that gives them a certain level of clarity that no other type really has. And because they have extroverted feeling, they're able to tap into their passion on how they want to help people or inspire people. They're pulling from that water, from that emotional powerhouse. And because of that, they have that willpower that drives them a little further. They have that emotional motivation to get to that destination, but they're balanced very well with introverted thinking as a third function, which is going to take the steps day by day to get to that outcome. So they really are gifted with the skills to guide people in a direction to be successful and to guide people along with them to their success. And so if you are an INFJ, you have an amazing vision, which you can utilize to get the life you want or to help other people get the lives they want. And the sooner you understand that, the sooner you understand the importance of trusting yourself and trusting your vision. The more that an INFJ trusts themselves, the more powerful they will be in the world. Their power, big time, is predicated on their ability to trust themselves. And then finally, the hidden power, I kind of touched on it, but just to kind of be clear about everything, is their strength. INFJs have extroverted sensing as a fourth function. They have introverted intuition first, which is pushing them forward toward a goal. They are able to bring a certain level of force toward where they want to get that other types just can't generate because they don't have that level of sensory power, that level of extroverted feeling to drive them. And then they have the introverted intuition that hones in and the introverted thinking that powers them forward. They have all the tools to just boom, move forward and get people on board. They honestly have high level leadership capabilities, and it's almost like a natural thing for them to do that if they're able to reach their full potential. You got to remember, INFJs have to first learn how to lead themselves, and that is their battle with confidence. And that's what I like about this picture. She's kneeling down. It looks like she's praying. Because a lot of the time INFJs can look like this, somebody that's just modest, trying to figure out how to get to a certain level, but within them is that grit and all the tools are there. And that's what that shadow represents. That's the superwoman, is that they have all the tools to get there. It's within them. You have a quiet strength that is felt deeply. You are equipped with a naturally powerful energy, and people gravitate to you. People gravitate to INFJs. And I think one of the biggest problems for the INFJs I work with that they struggle with is their confidence in their vision, their confidence in themselves. Because they have extroverted feelings second, they're always focused on how the other person felt, how to make the other person's experience better, how the other person was hurt. But they have to learn to value themselves and to put that on a pedestal. How did I feel? How did these people affect me? And that's them tapping into that introverted feeling, which is it's a subconscious function, right? They don't have the best access to it. But the way that they can access it is through connecting with their inspiration, connecting with the people that they're fighting for. And that's what I say for INFJs. Who are you fighting for? It might be your children. It might be somebody you care about, your friend, your family. It might be an ideal or a mission that you have. But use that to be your driver of strength when you're encountering challenges, because it's going to be bigger than just you being hurt by somebody. It's going to boil down to you knowing that you have a purpose. And once you really connect with your mission and you understand that you are stronger than what people might understand, that's when magical things start to happen in your life. And your level of strength begins to just gravitate. It will magnetizes out of you and people gravitate to it. So that's huge. Even though you feel deeply, you have a resolve that guides you through the toughest times. I mean, INFJs that I work with, they've dealt with some of the most difficult experiences, some of them that I've talked to, and you wouldn't even know but they're still so positive and focused on other people. I mean, it's amazing. And when others fold, your focus and inner knowing always commands a new path to success. So when others get in your way, when they let you down, when they try to block you, you have a resolve that allows you to come back and keep staying positive and going forward. And a big thing I got to bring up is staying positive. You all are having an ability to stay positive, and not let momentary things take over to where you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then finally, your vision and belief runs deep, and that's as real as it gets. I mean, INFJs, you know, they really want the best, and they're not chasing just the glamorous stuff. When I say the best, they want to be happy. They want to have, children and kids that are happy, and people around them that are happy, and really impact people in a positive way. And they're not the type to try to care to do it on a big glamour type of stage. It can be in their community. It can be just about their family. It can be at where they work. Regardless, they're putting in that touch that's making the world better. But just understand that your strength is in how much you tap into your vision, and understanding your strength is going to determine at what level you're able to make an impact. And what I got to emphasize is that INFJ can make a major impact in the world at high levels. You are gifted with tools to make a major impact. So do not settle for just the small. Try to aim as big as you can, because you may be surprised that you're able to make that happen. All right. And that's just the nature of INFJs. You are a gifted type, and that's just the way it is. I mean, Oprah, we're talking about mega billionaires, beyond her Oprah. There's so many special types that are INFJs that have had massive success. And to the degree that you tap into your vision and embrace your strength, is to the degree that you will be able to have a amazingly special and magical life. So I thank all the INFJs for watching, and continue to watch. We're going to go into the next group that I'm going to be talking about. So you stay tuned, and I hope you got some gems. Make sure to watch this again. The more that you watch it over time, these concepts will begin to delve in, and you'll be able to really notice more and more about yourself, and about your magical abilities, and about your natural psychological abilities that have come via MBTI, and through the tendencies that you were naturally attuned to. These are the way things that habits that you developed. These are the tendencies you developed, because these are what were the most useful and comfortable to you in your early years, all the way to now. So now that you understand it on a deeper level, go out there and be the best version of yourself. And I will see you in the next video, where we talk about our next type.